Okay, we're halfway through chapter 17. I think they're about to open this door, which I don't think is a very good idea, but nobody listens to me. Okay, so yes, that's the door, and it says very clearly, do not open it. But creak, they open it anyway. Alvin, Fishlegs, Hiccup and Toothless stood there, their mouths flopping open and shut like fish in their astonishment. The door had opened onto yet another gigantic cavern, and this was filled to the brim with more treasure than you could possibly imagine in your wildest dreams, even if you were as greedy as Alvin himself. So indescribably beautiful was this treasure that it drew them into the room like a magnet. It was all piled up on top of itself in crazy giant mountains, mound after mound of golden coins, with Caesar stamped on one side and Neptune on the other, heap after heap of rubies, fat as ripe as scallops and emerald green as a mermaid's eye, gorgeous silver cups with seahorses galloping delicately around them, and golden necklaces as plump as oysters, and swords as sharp as a conger's tooth, with octopus tentacles winding themselves around the hilt. It was the sort of treasure you could get lost in and forget yourself and your mind and this world at all. Oh my, breathed Alvin the treacherous, stepping forward. Oh my, oh my, oh my. And he reached out to grasp a cup, a glorious golden goblet, perfectly round in shape, with dolphins playing around the rim, so beautifully carved that it looked as if they were alive and leaping in a miniature golden sea. Toothless, Hiccup and Fishlegs recollected where they were and slowly backed towards the open door where Alvin was so preoccupied. But Alvin caught a glimpse of them out of the corner of his eye, and he stretched out and shut the door with the point of the storm blade. Nobody leaves the cavern without asking Alvin, he said. Now, Alvin, said Hiccup nervously, remember your promise. If I opened the door, you said you'd let us all live. Yes, said Alvin, considering the cup again, and then dropping it softly down back on the pile. The thing is, how gods don't always keep promises to other people. I blame our upbringing. My mother never really loved me, you know. But I always keep promises I make to myself. And long ago, when that coffin lid snapped open and chopped off my hand, I made myself a very solemn promise indeed. Alvin's pleasant eyes narrowed, and he sidled towards Hiccup like a predatory crab. It's not that I dislike you personally, Hiccup, but I swore to myself, said Alvin, still smiling, that I would find Grimbeard's precious treasure, and I would kill his precious heir. That's fair, isn't it? An heir in exchange for a hand? And he made a vicious swipe at Hiccup with the storm blade. Hiccup dodged out of the way in the nick of time. He leapt nimbly up onto the nearest mound of treasure and started scrambling up it. And with Grimbeard's own precious sword, too, chuckled Alvin. Isn't fate artistic? Toothless, yelled Hiccup. Get me a sword! Alvin climbed after him and made another wild lunge at his head. Hiccup ducked behind a large golden chariot wheel. Toothless, cried Hiccup, hurry up! Okay, okay, muttered Toothless, who had flown to a pile of weaponry not far away. Keep your helmet on. Toothless is doing his best. Toothless tried to pick up 3 of the swords, all of them as big and beautiful and flashy as the Stormblade itself, but they were all too heavy. So he turned to something smaller, an undistinguished but serviceable object, a bit rusty at the edges, perhaps. He could lift it easily with both talons and flew with it to where Hiccup was climbing. Hiccup was a quarter of the way up a hill of treasure, hotly pursued by Alvin, who had little red lights dancing in his narrowed eyes and was swishing that Stormblade like it was a human flail. There is Toothless, the rescue, with the sword in his mouth. Toothless to the rescue. Toothless often comes to the rescue. Toothless dropped the rusty sword into Hiccup's hand, and he caught it just in time to parry a blow by Alvin so terrible that if it had actually connected with Hiccup's neck, it might have removed his head from his shoulders then and there. Hiccup caught the sword in his left hand, because if you remember, his right arm was dislocated and in a sling. This isn't going to last long, he thought to himself. It was a case of man against boy, and Hiccup wasn't exactly the greatest sword fighter in the Isles, even with his right hand. "Keep your pointer up, Hiccup," shouted Fishlegs, desperately trying to clamber up after them so he could help. "Iron the swords at all times, a strong wrist, remember your footwork." Alvin the treacherous gave a great swipe at Hiccup's belly, and Hiccup was surprised to find his left arm jerk up and his own sword block Alvin's in the nick of time. Alvin was equally surprised, and he hauled his great sword over his wicked head, and he brought it down towards Hiccup's neck, and Hiccup's arm flashed up and parried the blow just before it bit. This is very surprising. Astonished, Alvin began raining blows thick and fast, striping and slashing and lunging, and Hiccup's left arm parried every thrust as if it had a life of its own. "Well, suffering swordfish!" exclaimed Fishlegs. "Hiccup is left-handed." I would not have you think that this was a fight that Hiccup will be proud to look back upon now, for Hiccup would grow up to be a master swordsman, a genius of the art. And this fight, by comparison with the extraordinary skill with which he fought later, was a clumsy work, mostly defensive strokes. And although I'd love to say that Alvin the treacherous was a the truth is that he was just so-so at the art, preferring to poison his enemy's cup or bash him from behind with a rock rather than fighting him face to face. But he was still much older, stronger and more experienced than Hiccup, and while it might not have been the best fight that Hiccup ever fought, it was certainly the one he would look back on with the most astonishment and pride, for it was the first time in his life that Hiccup realised he was left-handed. Imagine if you've spent the whole first part of your life trying to walk on your hands. The clumsiness of it, always falling over, always stumbling, always being last at everything. Imagine the joy of discovering that, in fact, you could walk on your feet after all. That is what it felt like to Hiccup fighting with his left hand for the first time. So exhilarating was the feeling that he was even starting to enjoy himself. Hiccup was helped by Toothless, who swooped down and attacked Alvin's head so that Alvin was constantly distracted. "On fire!" smiled Alvin. Never thought Grimbeard's ear would stoop to 2 against 1. The excitement made Hiccup overconfident, and he called out, "Leave him to me, Toothless!" "Leave him to you?" Fishlegs shouted up furiously. "What do you mean, leave him to you? Carry on, Toothless, and that is an order. This is real life, Hiccup, not a sword fighting on sea lesson, and you need all the help you can get." In fact, the practicing from the sword fighting at sea lessons were a big help to Hiccup, because the shifting, moving ground of the treasure mound was rather similar to the movement of the deck on sea. Hiccup kept his balance more easily than Alvin, who continually staggered and lost his footing. Nonetheless, it was soon clear that although Hiccup was enjoying himself, he wasn't winning the fight, even with Toothless's help. With a grim smile on his lips, Alvin the treacherous fought Hiccup back and back, eyes aglow with that red light back to his old smooth self again. Oh, look, and there's a whole page of helpful tips on how to sword fight. The piercing lunge, raise sword above head, let out ear-splittingly, ferocious yell, bring sword firmly forward as your feet leaves the ground. I don't think you should try this one. The confusing your enemy bottoms up routine. No, I'm not sure you should do that one. No. The shifting, oh, hang on, where were we? Oh, yes. Yes, back to his old smooth self again. "Come on, Hiccup," he wheedled. "Don't be scared of your old pal, Treacherous. I wouldn't harm a hair. Swipe. On your head. Swipe." "Listen, Alvin," urged Hiccup as he parried each blow. "I'm sure we can all get away safely if you forget about the treasure." "Oh, I will," promised Alvin. "Just as soon as I've killed you, I will." "Look, Alvin," reasoned Hiccup, "it's never too late to change. You've still got a chance to live life differently, make friends, start a family." "Stop it," said Alvin. "You're making me laugh. You give me a second chance? That's really funny, that is. You're a heartbeat away from the abyss, a mere child fighting a fully grown man, and you're going to give me second chances? It's too kind of you." He made a particularly violent lunge that Hiccup just managed to dodge and very nearly lost his balance doing so. "It's too late for me," laughed Alvin. "I'm rotten to the core, and I like being rotten. The treasure has got me, and I like being got." He raised his sword way above his head as Hiccup clutched desperately at the shifting coins to steady himself. "But I appreciate your concern," said Alvin, bringing the sword down with such savage force that it would have cut Hiccup in half if he had not spotted it coming and made one last leap out of the way. So that the blow, instead of separating Hiccup into two pieces, caught Alvin completely off balance, and he stepped back onto the treasure man behind, one on which they had not fought before. And the treasure unexpectedly reared up beneath him as if it were alive. Oh dear. And chapter 18 is called Grimbeard the Ghastly's Final Surprise. We'll have to find out about that tomorrow.